Well, welcome to another Journey on My Mind. I'm here with a couple of my buddies from way back. Today is my 8th anniversary of being on Journey's staff.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Wow, I made it 8 years. I don't know what
That's
that
hard to
means.
believe.
That says a lot about me or the place. But, and Sam has been with me the whole time.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
I wasn't too far ahead of you.
Yeah, just a few
In
months.
June, it'll be 9 for me. Yeah.
Yes.
So pretty
And-
close. Neck and neck.
Thank you. Thanks for staying.
Oh, gosh.
And Dave joined us a while after that, but we are so glad he stayed as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
And we are having a great time doing this moment. But if you recall, in the early stages of Journey on My Mind, we needed to come up with what were we
A
trying?
name. It was a name contest.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone named the
Oh,
podcast.
What
right.
it was called.
That's right, Brenda.
podcast, yeah.
Brenda came up with the name.
Yeah.
Brenda Peterson. If you're still watching this, thank you. But we, I guess this is an annual thing.
Well, what happens
Come on,
is
Dave,
I
tell me.
work in a place where all these people have little girls that are Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
And then they leave the little
More calories.
sign up thing, and you have to.
Oh, right.
You have to.
Yes, for sure.
Right? And let me just give you a little context here. Yesterday in my office,
Yeah.
2 dozen duck donut boxes, 1 Tiff's Treats box,
Wow.
Ooh.
3 miniature cupcake boxes,
Oh.
and
They're all empty.
and then someone else left just normal. I mean, like I would be in diabetic coma. Like
Yeah.
they'd cut my foot off if I just. So I have to get these things. I do. I have to. But then I have to give them away.
Right.
So this goes to Edwin. Thank you, Edwin.
Yes.
Yep.
These are Adventurefuls, by
Well,
the way.
Those are the new ones.
They're good.
They're good.
Yeah.
I looked at the calorie count on this one and that one.
Yeah, we
That
swapped.
that
We
one's
swapped.
worse. So
Yeah.
I went with the less calorie. I'm kidding.
I don't care. We love them all. So,
Nothing
if
like
you're
a
trying to watch
good
that
Girl
figure,
Scout cookie.
Yeah.
Tag-alongs.
So Kevin, you've been out for a while. Are
Yeah.
you
Yeah, I'm
back? Are you?
I am. I've actually been able to get sleep the last couple of nights, which has been
Boner.
extraordinarily helpful. Got a little exercise today. Played a little pickleball with Mike Erie.
Oh wow.
Which
That's probably an event.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It is. It's a
It's fun.
adventure, and it is a good time.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And it actually is a decent
It
little
was
workout.
fun. We did it on
Yeah.
our staff retreat.
We did.
And it was awesome. Yeah.
So I've learned how to play 3 times now. I suck
Wow.
at it, but it's and people usually lose when they play with me, and that's all right.
They lose.
They lose because of...
you play teams.
Oh, your
right?
teammate.
Oh, I see.
Your
Your teammate.
teammate loses.
Yeah,
that wasn't
I
clear.
got you.
No,
Okay.
I'm
You made it
sorry.
sound like you were
Clarifying.
awesome at it.
No, I
Yeah.
suck.
No, you...
So
We
all
knew.
that to say, I'm learning how, and there's rules that I violate all the time. That
Go in the kitchen.
I do.
I do too.
I do. And there's a
Can't
guy
stay out
that
of
we
the
played
kitchen.
against that kept serving up a ball perfect for me to step into the kitchen and hit it. And he was like,
Point.
you keep doing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep putting that thing there.
Yeah.
And he did. And I probably gave him 6 points stepping in the kitchen.
I don't know what that
yeah.
means, by the way.
That's
Yeah.
all right.
So if you don't know what it means,
Pickleball
I don't know
rules.
what it means.
Yeah,
Pickleball
it's
rules.
Pickleball talk. Anyway,
But you're back in your life.
I am. Yeah.
You're getting back in there.
Right. My mom passed away on February 2nd.
Yeah.
And that has a rippling effect in ways that it's amazing.
Was it surprising the ways it had rippling effects?
Some of it,
Yeah?
yeah. I have been doing my mom's finances for 14 years. My mom and dad's finance. My dad got dementia back. It was diagnosed back like in 2009, 2008, and then they turned their finances over to me for multiple reasons, so that my mom wouldn't mismanage the money. And so since that, I've been managing her money. My dad died in 2012, so I've been, for 12 years, it's just been her.
Yeah.
And I thought, how hard can this be? I know all this stuff. Well,
Psych.
I could write a book
Yeah. I'll bet.
about the complexities of when somebody dies.
Maybe you should.
Oh, yeah,
That
maybe.
might be helpful.
I am on the, I wrote down a list of things that I have to get done, and I have a certain amount of time. Some of it's dealing with the government, some of it's dealing with things like Amazon
Yeah,
and
that was fun.
Google, and because she had a Gmail account and Amazon account and a Facebook account. Oh boy. Anyway, all that to say this is that I've decided to handle one thing a day rather than I'm going to plow through this.
There you go.
And so I've probably worked through half of the things I got to work through, and I'm pleased with my progress.
That's in a month. That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. So
'Cause some of those things aren't easy. Like
right,
closing like Amazon.
The
like you were
Amazon, I
saying,
got
you know,
stuck
like,
in the loop, man. I called them on the phone because they kept charging things to my mom's credit card.
Right.
After she died. So it was February. She died on February 2nd. There's a charge to the 6th, the 8th, the 12th. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. And so I call Amazon. This was the mistake I made. I called Amazon. I said, look, my mom died, and you're still charging things. Oh, okay. You need to talk to so-and-so. So they sent me to somebody else. And so I was on hold, and that person, I didn't allow enough time because I had an appointment an hour and 15 minutes later, thinking, I can get this done
Of course
in an
you
hour
did.
and
Yeah.
15 minutes.
That seems
Yeah.
very reasonable.
Yeah.
I cannot get it done in an hour and 15 minutes. I was on the phone the whole time. I talked to 4 different people. And when I realized I wasn't going to get it done, I said, I don't want to start over. Can I just call you back directly? Oh, no, you can't do
oh
that.
my gosh. Dude.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. Have a nice day. Click.
It's like
I
this,
said some things that are ungodly.
Yeah.
I admit it. That was a very
it's
frustrating
frustrating, man.
moment.
it's like this has never happened before
Yeah.
in the history of
Yeah.
the world to
Yeah.
Amazon.
No
They're
one
like,
has ever.
Yeah.
What do we do?
What are you gonna do?
this now, guys?
No one's ever
Yeah, we
died,
didn't plan
ever.
on this happening.
Yeah, we've
No.
never had a customer die ever.
Oh, so...
Yeah, it's like you're in a parallel universe. Like
Oh,
nobody
my
knows
word.
what they're doing. It's just it's a loop.
Oh, we know who you should talk to, so and so. Well, no, you're not supposed to talk to me. You're supposed to talk to so and so.
But I thought your plan worked really well.
I thought so.
I mean, what you ended up
Oh
ultimately.
yeah, I ended up just canceling my mom's credit card.
doing. Go ahead, charge
I
me
was
now,
like,
Amazon.
Oh wait, I know what I'll do.
That's
So,
perfect.
Perfect.
Yes, solves that problem.
But we're glad you're back, kid.
We are
Thanks.
glad you're
It's
back.
good to
Yeah.
be back. That was
Yes,
probably a
buddy.
longer explanation than you wanted, but
No,
there,
it was
there it
good.
is. There it is. It's the lessons learned, and then I really have to organize the stuff for my kids now. I know what to do now in such a way that if Lori and I die at the same time, there's a easy.
You want to make it easy.
Here you go. This is what
Yeah.
you do.
I'm going to tell you, I've bragged on my mother-in-law before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The woman is on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She has a notebook this thick.
Yeah.
It has her obituary. It has her
already written.
insurance stuff. It has passwords. It has
Yeah.
Yeah.
everything in it. Everything.
Yeah.
It's like, here's what to do in the event of,
That's
Yeah.
Angie's mom too.
Yeah.
Same exact way, like totally prepared. And then my mom and dad, it was like, well, good luck, And her mom and dad are like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's detailed out,
Right.
And she makes sure every time we're there that we know, like, it's just
Well, I have it really spelled out for Lori because the assumption is I'll die before she will. That's the assumption.
Wow.
keep acting.
No, her family doesn't die.
No one dies.
No one dies.
That's true,
These
yeah.
people live into their 90s, and
Yeah,
my family doesn't. Which is, I'm okay with that, by the way. But
I don't know what to do with that comment. But
yeah. You
carry
know,
on.
Keep going.
yeah,
Just
right. But I mean, so I've got it all like really like here, Lori. If I die, this is what happens. But when both people die,
Yeah,
Right.
it's a totally different game.
For sure.
It's a totally different thing because I helped my mom walk through when my dad died. I thought, well, this isn't so bad.
Mhm.
But most of it just, oh, here's a spouse. Here you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, here.
yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But when you're all done, like when that family closes the chapter, then it's an executor. Then it's like,
Right.
well, are you really their son? Apparently not.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, this is a good little coda or closing to the last couple of
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
podcasts we've had on
Yeah.
aging.
Yeah.
And you said you'd wanted to talk about coping mechanisms.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
Is that coming from a personal place?
Oh
or-
yeah. Yeah.
Something you want to talk about, kid?
Yeah,
Twizzlers.
okay, Thanks. Yeah. Well, yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
Twizzlers is one of my coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Sweet candy, chewing things like, and my wife now. As I've learned my coping mechanisms, right? And I'm feeling things I don't want to talk about. I'll either go get a piece of candy. I'll get something to eat that makes me feel better.
Mhm.
So whatever that is, usually Twizzlers. If we don't have Twizzlers,
Red Vines?
I'll put no.
Oh.
Lord have mercy,
teasing.
Red Vines do not make it into my house. It'd be like
We have opinions.
Yeah.
yes, fruit snacks are great. Anything chewy, kind of.
Yeah.
A cookie will in the like. Oh, okay, in a pinch, give me a cookie. But the other one is I'll just do stuff. Like I'll get up and do the dishes. I will. Like the other day, it was warm outside, and I was washing the car, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm not wanting to feel what I feel right now, so I'm washing the car. So leave me alone.
You're busying yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it was very effective because I could cope. I didn't have to feel what I wanted to feel. That's kind of what I was, and I believe everybody has them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, to kind of make that point,
Yeah.
if something happens, death of a parent,
Right.
a breakup, something,
Yeah.
you're going to cope. The issue is how you're going to cope. It's not whether you're going to cope.
Right.
I mean, if you're curled up in a fetal position on the ground, you're coping. Maybe not optimally or well, but that's the point is that you're people, if you have something bad happen and you continue to live, you are coping in some way,
Right.
whether it's good or not good.
Right.
So, when we talk about coping mechanisms, we're not talking about something that is inherently good or inherently bad.
Right.
We're talking about really not even in categories. We're talking about a continuum or a range.
Are we always coping?
Well, to varying degrees. I mean, we're always coping, but not always coping well.
Gotcha.
Would you?
Yeah.
That
Yes.
make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
totally
Right.
does.
We're always coping.
Right.
So let's use your busying yourself example.
Sure.
Right.
That has been a great vehicle to get a lot done.
Right. So I'm going to make this argument that that's more on the plus side than mine is based on what you're saying.
Yeah.
But you could imagine that something like that's fairly innocuous, right? You're like, oh, I'm washing the car, or I'm
Yeah.
cleaning out the closet, I'm whatever.
Vacuuming.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's also possible that same kind of activity could be such that it takes you out of your life, or it keeps you from dealing with the things you actually need to deal with, or do the things you need to do.
Right.
So even that's what's interesting about talking about coping.
Yeah.
Is it's not even fair to say these are good coping strategies or these are not.
Yeah.
It depends on why and how much.
How it affects your
life. Like
right.
I'll give you an example. Let's say video games. Are video games good or bad? I'd say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It depends.
But if someone is using video games to kind of cope with the stress of the day and they're playing an hour or so, who cares?
Yeah.
Right.
But if they disappear into them and they're playing them 6 hours a day, or they're
Right.
staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning and it's affecting, that's not great.
Right.
Right.
So I think that's the point that I want to make, is that the strategy itself is some are clearly better than others, right?
Sure. Like drinking can be a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah.
substance use and
Right.
kind of compulsive behaviors and
Right.
gambling and overspending and all these kinds of things could be almost inherently problematic. But even some of our, we'll use air quotes, good coping can be
Yeah. Damaging.
good or not good
Right.
in terms of how healthy they are.
Right.
That makes sense?
I found like this is a relatively new arena for me to step into because of going through some different groups and on Plumline and things. But one of the things that I learned about myself was I didn't realize that my work was my coping mechanism.
Huh.
So there's a realization. Once the realization, and my wife said, well, I could have told you that. I've watched you work your whole life, and so you don't feel things. And so I was like, well, that would have been, good information somewhere along the line. But now I got it, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm very aware.
Yeah.
I'm very aware, like going through this season of my life with my mom.
So what do you do with that? Like the awareness is because you're still working.
Yes. It's, I don't always work for the sake of masking my feelings, but the idea is now that I'm aware of it, I can tell on myself and say, oh, what am I feeling that I feel compelled to get up from this conversation or this moment and do something that wasn't on like planned or isn't my occupation or isn't anything. I just don't want to think about what I was feeling. So I'm going to go do that.
I think you've also invited us into that too.
Yeah.
Like, like
Right.
we're all aware of that now.
Right.
And so, check in.
Yeah.
And you check in with that with us. And
Yeah. What are you feeling? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now my wife has asked that question.
Yeah.
What are you feeling that you don't want to
feel?
To
Yeah.
feel.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll say, I don't want to talk about it right now, which is fine. I said, let me do something for a minute and then I'll talk to you about it.
Good.
Yeah.
And, you're hitting on something I think is really important, and that is all of us tend to kind of gravitate or migrate toward our areas of strength or our areas of pleasure, right?
Yeah.
Those things that are like, oh, I really enjoy video games, or I really enjoy.
And you like video games.
Yeah. Or I've used that twice, but like binge watching TV or whatever.
Yeah.
And then also we go to where we feel competent, especially when there's a high stress circumstance. It's like, this feels very out of control, but you're good at your job.
Right.
You do your job well.
Yeah.
And that feels like home base, and it feels very,
I'm very comfortable in that. Yeah.
And I would say there's nothing inherently bad about that, except it is good to have that other layer where you're going, I'm using this to not deal with the thing.
Yeah. And eventually, and I think that what was really telling when we went through COVID here at church and different things, I fell into some form of depression, and there was a not clinical or anything, just a real sense of this. I was just really
down
sad.
season,
And could you name it at the time?
I don't think I could.
Yeah, that often is true.
But it didn't matter how hard I worked at it at work. It wouldn't go away. So this was the more aha moment for me of, there's something wrong here. This isn't working.
Like something's bigger because my copes aren't working.
Right.
Is that,
Yeah. It didn't make me feel any better. Like normally I could eat a bag of licorice and I'd feel better. And it wasn't working. I was just getting fat. So there was that recognition. And so I ended up having to talk with someone, and which was good. Yeah. But I had to sort it out.
Right. And I would imagine from what you're saying is like, that's with your history, personal history, you're not used to thinking of yourself in those ways.
Not at all.
And then, so in the moment, you're not thinking I'm depressed. You're thinking I'm just kind of stuck or in a funk or I'm don't feel good.
Oh no,
or
depression
whatever.
didn't enter my mind.
Right.
I think it actually was Sam who said, "Do you think you're depressed?" I was like, "Huh." I think that could be. Perhaps. Right. So, and it's the, and part of it too is as a pastor, okay, you step into this role as a pastor, and what you do is help people spiritually work through depression. You help people spiritually walk through, you're kind of, I can see where you're coping, and you can see it in other people. You can say, hey, let's redirect that. Let's on some level interject some kind of maybe a spiritual discipline in place. Let's cope that way, or let's cope in different ways. Introduce different copes, right? And that never entered my mind that I coped at all.
You didn't even think of yourself as somebody that
had to cope. Right.
You just lived life.
Right. Yeah. Like,
I feel bad for all you copers out there.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm all right.
But you don't until somebody like sits down and goes, "Yeah, this is what you do." You're right. So you tell on yourself, basically.
Good.
Yeah.
I feel like this is really the heart of where we need to get to. Is with the whole point of this podcast is this
the intersection, right?
Of the mental health piece and the faith piece. And so for you guys, when you're talking with someone or even just reflecting on yourself, where's the balance between, and this is my own bias.
Sure.
Like I think having a healthy faith is vital, important, and very real. But I also know historically in our faith traditions that things like depression are almost always spiritualized or bypassed or not acknowledged.
Right.
And so we grow up in ways that we're not tuned into that. So how do you integrate faith in a way that's real and powerful, but not in a way that's sort of dismissive or just like all the answer is just,
pray,
have more
faith,
have more faith or quiet time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You want to shoot at that one?
I mean, one of the things that I encourage people just to try and be aware of is that, because just because you love Jesus or you're doing the right doesn't mean that bad things or depression or anxiety those aren't going to affect. And
people still die.
That's right. Yeah. And we've kind of talked about this a lot here at Journey, but just the idea of that witness that he might, it's not necessarily he's not causing it or might not take it away, but he's with us in that whatever we're experiencing. And so and then I hope that as a community we exemplify that witness. Now it doesn't necessarily fix it, but it opens the door, I think, oftentimes.
Yeah, I think part of it too is we ask identity questions. Like let's just say somebody is depressed and you recognize the depression. They often identify with the depression as being part of their identity. Like if it's a chronic, ongoing thing, and so you kind of help them separate out their identity in Christ as opposed to this identity that's rooted in something that is not right, not
healthy,
so not healthy. Now, could depression be with you or loneliness be with you and all those things? Sure, but it's not who you are. And so to help people understand the differences of those things I think it's one of the meeting places of mental health with spiritual formation is to help people wrestle with this idea that, that's not who I am. It's part of what is happening to me. And so identity becomes a better understanding, like you were created in the image of God, that you're given choice, you're given value, you are dearly loved. And so there's this belief system that God is engaged with us in a particular way to give us true human identity. And that, yes, bad things happen to us, and yes, we have feelings that sometimes take us down the wrong path, or down a path of just pain, or down a path of depression, or whatever it might be. And so how does faith interact with that? Is our faith should draw us back to the center of our identity as a human that is made.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with what you're saying, but one thing I'd
caveat
clarify is there are people that have bad circumstances and then get depressed.
Sure.
And
that's what happened to me.
And that feels different than someone that's
clinically
that everyone in their families struggle with depression. And there's a biochemical piece of it.
Sure.
Kind of like I made an offhand comment about diabetes at the beginning, which is something I literally have to watch blood sugar for myself.
Sure.
Even though I'm not
diabetic,
fully in that range. But if I were, let's say I had type 1 diabetes, that's not who I am, but it is my passenger. Right? It is it is a part of what I have to how I have to I have to own that to manage it well.
Right.
And so part of it is not just if I find my identity in Christ,
this magically goes away.
Right.
No,
and that's important, I think.
Yes, that's a good distinction.
To say, because it's not just if I find because I think that message gets said too in our church circles, is that the more you find your identity in Christ, then you have some release from these other things. I don't think that's true in the same for some people.
Right.
Yeah. For some people it is.
Right.
But for some people, in the same way that having hypertension or some other health condition, you're not released from that because of your of your relationship closeness
with God.
Not to say that's not important,
but I think there is a connection. We started this conversation around this idea of coping. I think there is some connection between I'm depressed. How am I going to cope with that? And then my chronic feelings of, like, I've owned it probably as long as I can remember, is loneliness. I just recently, like in the last couple of years, have been able to name it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that's my partner. That's the one that's with me all the time. And part of acknowledging that and seeing that, it didn't go away, but now I know what it is, and I can name it, and I can assign a need to it. I need to be seen, or I need somebody to talk to, or I need, right. So there's a remedy that comes with that, but it's not me. I thought it was me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was just, that's everybody feels this way, or if I feel this way, somebody else has to feel this way. But so there's an understanding that comes with it, but also then I began to connect the dots between loneliness and also the presence of God. And the lack of my seeking the presence of God added to my loneliness, and my loneliness drew me away from God. So
good.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah. No, it's I love that, Kev. I think it's
and I think this is where it intersects.
Yeah.
I think to understand depression, you can move towards God in your depression. It may not go away. My loneliness doesn't always go away.
Right. So you were going to comment?
No, I was just thinking, I mean, maybe I looked like I was going to. I was just thinking it's that witness. It is, there is that with understanding that witness, of God's presence in those things too.
Yeah.
So
the part I would also add, which I think is really powerful here, is the human brain is wired to avoid pain. Right.
For
so
sure.
it's a imperative.
Yeah.
And it's to keep us safe. And the middle part of our brain that's wired to avoid pain, which is always on the lookout for pain of different kinds.
Yeah.
Can't distinguish between saber-toothed tigers chewing my leg off or I'm having this relational pain, or I'm feeling
right.
And so its imperative is stop feeling this pain.
Right.
And what we realize is that may not be the best goal when it comes to emotional pain.
Right.
Not that the goal should be to sit in it.
No.
But it should be to have a tolerance for it to be in it.
Yeah.
And that also has to do with witness too, is like, if your goal is, my faith will make me free of pain.
Yeah.
That will disappoint you.
Yes.
Right.
Whether that is a pain of loneliness or of sadness or of whatever it might be.
Physical pain.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can have some relief in some ways. You can come to think of those things in different ways. But I think if we can reframe it as the journey of faith is not a journey of, if I do this, then everything works well in my life and I'm free of pain, as opposed to, I can be in this pain, not in a wallowing sense, but in I can sit with it and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to have a feeling.
Yeah.
Even if the feeling is really intense and really bad.
Right. And I can take care of myself in that.
And the scripture, really, the Bible's full, Old and New Testament, of people who had a very intense pain.
Yeah.
And they were wrestling with God in it. And they were, and in many cases, never relieved of it.
Yeah.
Right.
But yet somehow we have this idea that there's some, principles that get us free of sadness or free of loneliness or free of all. And I think it's just part of the human experience that we have this full palette of emotion.
Yeah.
And going back to the coping idea, if our coping is purely just to get away from pain, then that's where we might need to reflect on, should I be able to sit with this in a way that draws me closer to God rather than embitters me toward God, or makes me push away from God or other people.
Right. In it, one of the passages of scripture that always confounded me, kind of still does a little bit, but there's a moment in Acts, the book of Acts, where the two disciples get beat because they were proclaiming the name of Jesus, and they release them and say, don't do this ever again. And they go away rejoicing in their pain because they were able to suffer for the name of Jesus. I would have a bag of licorice, right? There's a
licorice theme, by the way. If you haven't figured that out.
Anyway, the idea of rejoicing in pain also is a piece of faith. There is this Jesus suffered for us, and he invites us into a life that would have some suffering in it. And for us, especially as American Christians, we
don't like that.
That doesn't seem right to us, and yet we're invited into it. And the disciples saw it as a privilege to suffer for the cause, for Christ.
Yeah,
and so I find that to be a difficult.
That's a more evolved person than maybe we are.
maybe, or just somebody who really sees the kingdom of God in its fullness.
Yeah, and our culture pulls us away from that because our culture, particularly our culture, American culture, is all about convenience and comfort
not
and
feeling
bad
pain. Things.
It's like feel pleasure and don't feel pain.
That's right.
That's really the context that we're living in.
Right.
And so whether we realize it or not, we've bought all those ideas that's the highest good. The highest good is comfort, convenience, and no pain.
Right.
And what's really interesting, this is, if someone said, what's a controversial take you have?
Yeah.
I think it doesn't feel like it's controversial, but I think it is.
Okay.
And that is part of the reason why we are having some aspects of the mental health crisis with higher rates of anxiety and depression and so on is not so much that the world is so much worse, because it isn't objectively. And we could talk about that too.
Yeah.
It's that we have thinner skin emotionally. Like we don't have the emotional muscle that because we are victim of our own privilege in a sense.
Right.
Right. It's like we've grown up in comfort, and even poor people in our culture, and again, I'm not trying to dismiss that, but are richer than people who are rich in other cultures, right? Just relatively speaking.
Right.
Now, I'm not speaking about people that are truly poor in our culture. You know what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
And that is, we have a culture of privilege and wealth and
when we learn things through pain, and so it's almost like that. There's a teacher that's missing in our culture.
Yeah, and that's
one of the good. Yeah.
If I was your personal trainer and you're like, Dave, I want to add 10 pounds of muscle.
That's right.
And I'm like, cool, here's the path. You're gonna have to do these weights and all. And you're like, I don't want to.
I don't want it to hurt. I don't want it to hurt. Yeah.
Then I'm like, I have got nothing for you.
Yeah.
Right. There's no path forward of building that muscle.
It's like all those machines in the 30s and 40s where like stand on this thing, it shakes your belly. Right. It seems like a good idea, but it doesn't work because there's. It just doesn't work.
Right.
There's no shortcut. There's no shortcut. Right.
And that's the same thing emotionally. It's like we want the emotional sturdiness without having pain in our lives and hardship in our lives. And I'm owning this too. I'm not saying I'm above this.
Right.
I mean, I feel this big time. The draw to be like, let me make my life easy.
Yeah. I feel in parenting, like I want to do that for my kid, but sometimes those, like the consequence, that's a teacher, you know, and we think we rob people from that learning at times.
Yeah, because you want to protect them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to protect them from pain.
Which comes from I think a beautiful place, but it's not necessarily the best.
And we're able to do it in our culture in ways that other cultures can't or historically have not been able to.
Yeah.
So we've done it, and it's not always come from a bad place, like you said.
Right.
But the result is we're not as emotionally sturdy. You think about the generation, the greatest generation, the World War II generation.
Right.
I mean, there are people that were forged in
oh my gosh,
pain.
Yes.
Like one thing after another, after another.
Right.
And they were, different breed of cat.
They were stout people, man.
Right,
yeah.
right. And
is that what we're calling it?
Well,
stout?
I mean, I mean, not
sturdy,
the best way. I mean, they were resilient.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right.
And it's a good beer too.
Yeah, stout. Well, speaking of, yeah.
But yeah, there's truth to that.
Oh yeah.
But and so the avoidance of pain leads to something.
Well, it less resilience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So bringing this back to where we started
with coping,
the trick is to have good coping in ways that work for you, but not in ways that are avoiding of the thing you need to be dealing with.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's something, there's a tutor in pain. There's there's a path forward in that. And so being able to feel that or sit with it, but also having coping that's good. I think I've said this before. You don't need to know the name of this, but there's something called the Yerkes-Dodson.
Okay.
Okay.
Yerkes-Dodson.
Yep. Good old Yerkes and Dodson.
My neighbor's car.
They got together. Yeah, the old Yerkes-Dodson.
That's a Dodson.
Yeah.
That's a Dodson.
In the way back of the Yerkes-Dodson.
Yeah, the Yerkes-Dodson.
So what this has said, and this is, research on this.
Yeah.
This isn't Dave making up Yerkes-Dodson.
Okay.
Is if you have low stress, your performance on fill in the blank tends to be low.
Yep.
If you have moderate stress,
Yeah.
your performance on whatever it is tends to be high. And if you have high stress, your performance tends to be low.
Yep.
So we call it a curvilinear response. It goes
You knew
the
this?
graph goes.
Well, I remember we talked about it before.
I don't remember this.
It goes like that.
Okay.
Right? So we're not just talking about performance here, but the same idea applies. It's like low stress, low, everything being super easy. Our ability to cope is going to be relatively low.
Yeah.
High stress, catastrophic stress, it's going to, our functioning and our coping is going to be low also. So the trick is to get it in that range where there's enough fire in the belly. We're feeling the things we need. We're getting stronger. We're building muscle. We're coping well.
Yeah.
That's the goal, is to hit in that center spot. And that's what, when we're talking about good coping, we're saying, can you eliminate all the pain and stress in your life?
You can't.
But also let's just sit in the catastrophe of everything and get totally
So how do we
shredded
honor
by it.
what we're actually feeling, and how can we use that?
That's
as
right.
It's good.
So
Dave.
is there, like, if, two people are still listening to this, is there,
By the way, Kevin's very pessimistic about it.
I know, because there's 4 now, dude.
we got 2 more.
Yeah, we just saw the graph just went
Way up.
Way
Oh,
up
get
on
tuned
this
back in, Kevin.
They're
said
like
something.
Girl Scout cookies. I'm in.
Right. Yeah. Is there is there a way for people to go, oh, this is how I cope? I coped for years and didn't even realize.
Like how to check in with that?
Yeah. How to identify your cope, or is there a test you could take,
A coping test, maybe? But here's
maybe
you actually set this up really well, and that is you went into your adult life without even thinking about the fact that you're coping.
correct.
And you, by nature, the fact that you're with us meant that you coped.
Yeah.
Right.
You figured it out.
Yeah.
You coped.
Right?
Yeah.
You may not have thought this is a coping strategy and that's a coping strategy.
No, never gave it a
Work's a
thought.
coping strategy.
Yeah.
Licorice is, but they were.
Yeah.
And you might reflect back and say, less good, better, whatever.
Sure.
Great.
Seasons. Yeah. I mean, I would work so much sometimes I would neglect my family.
Yeah. Not
which was
good.
Bad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So neglect family, bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Do not
Yeah.
do that.
Work and do a good job, probably good.
Yeah.
But that would be, so I think most people are probably in that boat where they don't consciously think they're coping.
Right.
They just think they're living their life.
Right.
And so part of it is the reflection. All right. What do I do when things get hard, when I feel sad or lonely or angry or anxious or whatever it is? And then really do a personal inventory around what in that is healthy and good for me,
Right.
and what in that probably needs to be
Yeah.
either eliminated or moderated. Because some things are not just get rid of that.
Right.
Some things are
I couldn't stop working.
right.
Like you need to shift it and keep it in a healthy place.
In that middle tension place rather than in the
higher or
And I know that I've said this twice, so I don't want to beat this in the ground, but I tend to see young adult guys and they're weed, marijuana,
Sure.
biggie, I could go down the list, but video gaming to the point of
Right.
like I'm up all night playing video games. It's eating up 6 or 8 hours of the day, which sounds crazy, but that's very, very normal now for guys to cope with because it's pleasurable. They're good at it. They've gotten good at it. They've got a sense of community. There are really good things about it.
Yeah.
but then they disappear into it in a way that tips the whole thing over.
Yeah.
So for me, the issue is not video games, yes or no. It's
right. Moderation.
6 hours and up till 4 o'clock in the morning. Like that's not healthy for you.
It's captured you.
And it's robbing you.
Yeah.
It's not just helping you.
Yeah, then
cope,
it
it's
takes all the
robbing.
things that can be good about it.
Yeah.
And it flips it around, right? It can. That's where your challenges come from, then, or can be.
That's
it.
it.
Yeah, it's good.
So that's what I would say is first acknowledge that you are coping.
Yeah.
And have coped.
Have coped.
Think of it in those terms, and then be real specific upon reflection and go, oh, this is what I do. I disappear into work, or I disappear into
A bag of licorice.
bag of licorice.
Or
So I get
video
curious
game.
about like what
Yeah.
what
How
do
do
I
I
do with
cope?
that? What do I do with this?
Or I go out in the garage, work on my car,
Right.
whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
And we're not judging those things. It's,
No.
it's more about where do they fit in your life? Do they rob you in some way? Do they rob other people in some way?
That's good.
Right.
That's a good
Does
important
it do,
question.
Does
Yeah.
it do relational damage?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But you could.
Yeah, for sure.
Even
Really
a good thing
good.
can do relational damage.
Yeah.
that's right.
So
Wow.
and then build your life in a way that incorporates the good, healthy coping, but not in a way that is aiming at I'll never feel anything bad and I'll never be uncomfortable.
Right.
And I think we're all co-strugglers in this. And
Yeah.
I'll just be honest. When I had 4.5 kids, as I
Yeah.
always say, and when they were all in high school together, I thought my head was going to pop off.
Yeah.
Well,
I
sure.
thought
Yeah.
I was just in the meat grinder.
Yeah.
And after that, and then we moved soon after that here,
Yeah.
and we had an apartment. We downsized. We gave away 80% of what we had.
Yeah.
We were just, and it was. I realized my commitment was I'm going to have an easy life now.
Yeah, my life is going to be better. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and not even, by the way, not even better in some ways, because I still appreciate, I love my kids.
Oh,
and
I know.
but
Right,
it
right,
was-
right.
It was hard.
Yeah.
And you're worn out. And I think I needed a period of time where I was just like, I need to rest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Which I'm glad.
yeah.
But then I don't want that to be my whole life.
Right.
Right. That's what we're like. I don't want my life to be anything that smacks of inconvenience or stress or emotional difficulty. I've got to get away
Right.
from immediately.
Right. Yep. Yep.
good.
Yeah, that's good. Well, hopefully this helps somebody out there listening in on Journey on My Mind. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully next time Lauren will be with us, or Susie, get some female perspective on
Yeah.
this. But thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.